When East African states gained independence in the 1960s, the new governments inherited massive responsibilities with very little revenue. They were immediately overwhelmed, lacking the budget to build a school for every child or a clinic for every village. This lack of funding created a geography of poverty that stretched beyond the government's reach. Essential services and human rights protections were missing in rural districts, leaving millions of citizens without a safety net. To bridge these gaps, international partners and local citizens formed independent organizations to provide direct aid. These groups focused on humanitarian relief and community survival where state infrastructure had failed to appear. We group these various entities under one umbrella term: civil society. A civil society organization, or CSO, is any non-state, non-profit group formed by citizens to work in the social sphere. Civil society functions as a multi-layered ecosystem. Because the needs of a community vary from clean water to legal protection, the ecosystem contains different types of organizations specifically designed to address those distinct gaps. The first pillar is the community-based organization, or CBO. These are small, local groups formed at the village level. They are funded directly by their own members, like a local women's group pooling their savings to buy better seeds for the planting season. The second pillar consists of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. These operate on a much larger scale, often national or international. Unlike small CBOs, NGOs rely on massive grants from foreign donors to deliver services like healthcare and education. For example, an NGO like World Vision has the technical equipment and funding to drill a borehole in a remote village, providing a clean water source that the local government was unable to provide. The third pillar is the advocacy CSO. These groups do not build physical things like wells or schools. Instead, they focus on the software of a country, teaching citizens their legal rights and lobbying the government for policy changes. Organizations like FIDA Uganda perform this advocacy role by providing free legal representation. They help vulnerable women navigate property laws to protect their land when traditional or local systems fail to defend their rights. Distinguishing between these groups depends on the task. You wouldn't expect a local village CBO to fund a national water project, and you wouldn't hire a massive international NGO to mediate a small dispute between neighbors. Let's check your understanding. Imagine a flood destroys the crops in your entire district. Look at the logistics required here. Pause the video and decide which type of organization, an advocacy CSO or a humanitarian NGO, is best suited to deliver these food boxes. A humanitarian NGO is the correct choice. Because they are backed by international donors, they have the transport networks and funding needed to move thousands of sacks of grain into a disaster zone on short notice. However, this model has vulnerabilities. Because large NGOs rely on foreign donors, they lack long-term sustainability. If that donor money stops flowing, the project instantly collapses, leaving the community with an unfinished hospital or a school with no teachers. There is also political friction. A government might welcome an NGO that builds a physical clinic, but view an advocacy CSO with suspicion. When CSOs teach citizens how to demand accountability from their leaders, the state often responds with strict regulations or office closures. This creates the central paradox of the ecosystem. The same independence that allows these groups to help citizens also makes them vulnerable to volatile foreign funding and hostility from the state. Do NGOs do more harm than good? While they save lives where states fail, they can make communities dependent on foreign aid. Ultimately, East African states must build their own capacity, so these outside groups are no longer needed. To keep these types straight, use this summary mapping the three pillars against their scope, funding, and a real-world Ugandan example. Remember, CBOs are for grassroots survival, NGOs handle large-scale relief, and advocacy groups focus on legal rights and accountability. While no single organization can fix every problem, this ecosystem provides the framework for citizen action. By organizing into CBOs or joining advocacy networks, citizens can address the specific local challenges that the government has yet to solve.